will we be able to send it to the All right, well, I'm going to assume, since I hadn't heard anything other than Mike, you had an offer you just mentioned, and we had multiple offers on. Okay. All right, well, before I actually delve in, let me give you a real quick background as to who I am and kind of why I'm teaching the class. Again, I've been around, I've been selling real estate for 38 years now. And I love the contract. The contract is my forte because that's where, in my opinion, that's where the rubber meets the road. It doesn't matter how many prospects, how many clients you have, if you can't get them into escrow, whether you represent them as a buyer or represent them as the seller. Believe it or not, our real estate market hasn't always been, when you get a listing, that it always sells. Okay, unlike what we've experienced these last couple of years, where if you get a listing and it's even overpriced at that point, you know, everything sells, no matter how crazy of a price it is. In this crazy market, everything is selling. But it hasn't always been that way, you know. Again, our topic is presenting multiple offers to your sellers so that they and you understand them. Because right now, I guess there could be worse headaches, but boy, if the biggest headache that you guys end up having when getting a listing is worrying about how do I present the offers to my sellers when I have multiple offers, it's a pretty good headache to have at that point. But the reality be, if you don't know how to do it, you could really come across to your client as very unprepared and incompetent. All right. Presenting one offer to a seller when you feel ill-prepared is very difficult if you're ill-prepared. The key to be able to presenting offers to your sellers is being able to understand the terms that are within the offer, you know, that's contained within the offer. Now, today, we're not going to get into everything on how to understand and learn the contract. I will say the changes that have been made in our contract that was just done, completed in December, that we're now using. I think our contract is phenomenal now. It was good before, it's phenomenal. However, it's 16 pages long. And there is a lot of information in them. And one of the things I've always said, both to my clients and then to agents who I've trained, is there's a lot of little boxes on our contract. And those boxes are small and mighty, okay? Especially if checked and you don't pay attention and recognize that a box was checked. So, let me ask you, what are a couple of things that you guys are looking to get out of today's class? What would you like to walk away with by the time we finish in the next 45, 50 minutes?
Get more familiar with the offers. In my case, I'm new to this, so I would like to get more knowledgeable.
Okay. All right, how about to gain a little bit more confidence? Okay, as to what to do and how to do it. Let me tell you how it used to be when we, let's say, only had a couple of offers. Because what constitutes a multiple offer? What is referred to? What is it referred to as? How do you define a multiple offer?
More than one?
Bingo, more than one. All right, and what is our job as a listing agent? Because we're going to predominantly right now, I'm going to talk to you guys as listing agents, again, based on our class presenting multiple offers to your sellers, okay, so that they understand them. What is predominantly our job as listing agents?
To present all offers.
One more time?
To present all offers.
Well, it is our job to present all offers, but as a listing agent, what is our primary objective traditionally for our sellers, to our sellers?
Well, to serve the best interest of the sellers, so depending on whatever their priority is, I
That's
would say.
correct. Traditionally speaking, our job as listing agents is to get them the highest amount of money for their property. That is our job. Now, it is their choice, and also based on whenever we do get offers in, to be able to, that they may not necessarily take the highest offer. They may end up deciding to take a lower priced offer in certain circumstances. Okay. Whenever you get more than one offer, again, we are required by law to present each and every offer to the seller, no matter how low they are, once they are written. And just for a side note, okay, in case you guys ever are put in this position, you're not required by law to write up an offer if you feel like the offer that the buyer that you're representing wants to write up a very low ball offer. Over the years, many buyers have been under the impression that all agents have to write up any and all offers. And they actually confuse it with regards to, no, agents are not required to waste their time writing up a low ball offer or wasting their paper. And, however, once that offer has been written, it then has to be presented to the seller. Okay. So one of the things that I end up doing, well, and actually, why do we present offers? That's what I wanted to cover real quick. Why do we present offers? Why do we present offers to our sellers when we're the agent to the seller? Why don't we just tell the seller we got offers in, and here's what we're going to do. Here, I drafted a counter offer as to what we're going to do, and I just need for you to sign it.
Because that's part of the agency, right? That's an agency that we have to create that trust with the seller, no matter.
Well, we have a bill. It's already. It even goes to my argument. Why do we present offers when we have an agency arrangement already with our sellers?
Because at the end, it's up to the seller to decide.
Bingo.
What's the offer?
That's exactly right. It's not up to us. It's not up to us. Only after discussion based on the price in terms of the offer, okay, we then end up drafting a counter offer if a counter offer is then needed to be able to then, reflect that of what the seller's wishes and desires are. Okay. Even though we have major influence, on that. So one of the things that I ended up finding whenever we got multiple offers, let's say we only got 2 offers in. Okay. One of the things that used to drive me as a listing agent batty was I would hand my sellers the contracts. I'm across their kitchen table, just trying to discuss the offer and the terms with them. And what do you think my sellers were doing while I'm trying to have a discussion with them? They are now turning the pages, okay, of a contract that still was multiple pages long. 6, our last contract was, how long was our last contract? 10 pages long was our last contract. How long is our current contract now? 16 pages long. Okay. Have you ever tried to have a dialogue with someone thumbing through pages when you're trying to explain something to them? How much do you think they retain? Very, very little. Okay. Because they're looking through a document that they really have no understanding about, because there is a lot. Why? How long has it taken us to be able to learn our contract? So one of the things that I ended up doing was putting together then a spreadsheet. And I do this on all offers that come in. And this is a spreadsheet, and I did it on all the old contracts, and I have now updated it for our current contract. Prior to this current one, it was 1 page, 8.5 by 11, portrait style. I now, because it's now so much more detailed, it now is actually 2 pages long. That takes 2 pages. And it's granted it's landscape style, and I'm able to have 2 offers on it at the same time. Now, I will tell you, this is one of the best ways for new agents or agents who are looking to be able to get a better handle with regards to what is the purchase contract all about, is to be able to fill it out on a spreadsheet. And the beauty of it is that you're able to then end up looking straight across. So what I end up doing, so I'm going to give you an example here. This here is the 2-page copy that then goes side by side. Okay, actually goes side by side. So goes underneath each other, and this shows for offers number 1 and 2. So if I end up having 10 offers, I'm able to end up having all the information, and I put it there, and they're able to put it side by side, and they're able to then compare each item per the agent submission of their offer, line by line. And it makes it real nice. And I'm going to end up showing you the next screen. Here is a sample on the next screen of one I had not too long ago, completely filled out. Okay, can everybody see that on your screens? Zoom,
Yes.
Zoom folks, are you able to see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how I have put this together literally is strictly in the order of our new purchase contract. Okay, of the order on which it falls in the contract within the filling of the blanks. All right. Now, why do I do that? And so what are the important categories that you need to focus on? What do you think is the number 1 important category when filling out the spreadsheet?
The price.
Price. Price,
That is
name,
one.
price.
Contingencies.
I'm sorry, what was the last one?
Contingencies.
Contingencies.
All right, guys, it was kind of a trick question. There is not a number 1. They're all.
It's all important. It's all important.
They're all important, and if I can convey anything to you guys, this is what you need to understand. Most agents, without having a spreadsheet, especially now with this new contract, if agents only try to analyze the contract strictly based on what you think would be the major categories. All right, and I just heard you guys talking about them. Price, contingencies, okay, but they're all important. All right. Now what it does is, notice on the columns, you know, what I have here is the terms and conditions. I have the default. All right, the default, the default meaning for anything that is filled in that the contract already has by default already built into the contract. And then under the number referring to offer number 1, offer number 2, I have an agent's name, and then I have the buyers. Now it's real important, and then I have what is referred to as, gosh darn it, called proposed counter terms. And why do I have it labeled as proposed counter terms as opposed to counter terms?
Because those are your suggestions.
Bingo. What's taken place is I have this spreadsheet all completed before I end up meeting with my sellers. So it takes some time. I will tell you, it takes, depending on your level of experience, probably an average of around 10 to 15 minutes, probably a solid 10 minutes, okay, per offer to analyze and to be able to input it into the spreadsheet, to be able to make sure, and then based on your experience, okay, is where I'm able to end up putting, this is what I would recommend in order for us to be able to put that on a counteroffer. Now, one of the things for those who's ever attended my training classes in the past, one of the things that I feel is real important is learning how to use the appropriate communication. And what I mean by that is I never end up telling my sellers and or buyers, if I represent the buyers, that you have to or you must do this or you must do that. What I do end up telling them is I highly recommend and I highly suggest, I propose, and here's the reason and reasons why. You're free to be able to take my advice and you're free not to take my advice. If in the event you don't take my advice, here's probably what's going to occur. And if you're okay with that occurring, I'm okay that you're okay. But I will never use the words to my clients ever, you have to or you must, because it is their decision. Okay. And that is the reason why I use the word propose, because if ever then the client then ends up going to me, well, Steve, I want to be able to end up, making sure that it's this, not that. It's like, well, okay, we can do that. I understand. And if that's what you want to be able to do, we can then do that. So I will say being able to have a spreadsheet is probably the absolute important thing, especially when it's a multiple counteroffer. Should you have a spreadsheet like this, even on a single offer? Absolutely. Now, some of you may say, well, what happens if my seller is this little old, 85-year-old lady who absolutely doesn't understand, wouldn't be able to understand it. She just completely relies on whatever I say. And I said, I still fill them out for my little old ladies at that point, because little old ladies also have adult children, all right? And before she makes a decision, she may want to run it by her adult children. And so it is definitely one that it should, I recommend that it should be used for everybody. Now, let's say the little old lady doesn't have adult children and you guys want to be able to move forward with writing counter offers that afternoon. You should still have it and be able then to be able to discuss the points with them and be able to say, I'm recommending this and I'm recommending that for these particular reasons. Now, when we analyze offers in this marketplace, so now let's get down to kind of nitty gritty. Okay, kind of what I talked about at this very moment really has been more generalized. All right, probably just good pearls of wisdom, whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market, but for anything, when you're representing a seller. So now you're representing a seller in this crazy seller's market. And I will say, in my 38 years, this is the craziest of the real estate markets I have ever seen. even crazier when they were giving the money away back in 2003, 4, 5, 6. Okay. This market is even crazier than that. So because I'll tell you, when you as a listing agent now end up having all these contracts come through, and you now have 5, 10, 15, 20 offers that are submitted, you need to be able to understand and be able to differentiate, okay, the offers that you feel are going to be able to perform. And what does perform mean when I talk about the word perform? Anybody out there? Speak up. Perform, go ahead. Was somebody about to speak? I'm sorry.
I'm thinking going through escrow to completion.
Bingo, that's exactly right. I'm talking about if the seller were then to be able to accept the offer, that buyer is then going to end up completing the transaction from A to Z, as opposed to it falling out of escrow by either the buyer backing out or it falling out due to financing issues. What are some of the steps that, even before we even present offers to the sellers, a good listing agent should be doing? What are some of the steps that a good listing agent should be doing even before presenting offers to the seller? What should accompany a good offer?
A pre-approval letter,
A pre-approval letter, okay.
how much their down payment is.
Okay. Anything else?
FICO score.
All right, the FICO score with the credit, okay.
Do
How
they
about-
have,
Go
Are you
ahead.
asking
have-
about in the contract or?
No,
are you ask-
no, outside of the contract, what are other things that a good listing agent should be checking? And let me use the word verifying, if that may help trigger. Okay, even before presenting any of the offers to their sellers.
do they have backup money in case?
Proof of funds.
Proof
Yeah.
of funds. That's exactly right. Let me ask you, how many transactions today do you think are getting accepted with appraisal contingencies in place right now?
No. Well, there are a few, I think.
I don't know the exact percentages, but I'm going to say
Very rare.
very few. Okay. So one of the things as a good listing agent in this marketplace is that depending on where the offers initially come in, it's almost now a given as a listing agent that, especially if the offers that are coming in are over asking price, let alone significantly over asking price, that you must be able to have the buyers remove an appraisal contingency. Now, I can teach a whole class on finance and appraisal contingency, but I'm not going to do that. This class is not for that. However, I want to touch on, and this is really important because this is still part of the understanding multiple offers, is that if you have a piece of property and that when you listed it, you did your homework, and based on the most recent comps that have closed, you felt that the most probable sales price, or what it should appraise for, would probably be $1 million. Let's just use some simple numbers now. But now you're getting multiple offers in, and you now end up, and the offers now are at $1.2 million, which is not uncommon, of it being 20% over the asking price. Now you look at the offer of your buyer that comes in, of each buyer, but let's kind of right now for discussion's sake, talk about this one particular offer is now written for $1.2 million, but they're a 10% down buyer. And what does 10% down mean? What percentage of a loan amount are they now going to be applying for if they're putting 10% down? Come on, guys, basic math.
90.
90.
Give me a percentage. If the buyer's putting 10% down, what percentage of the loan are they applying for?
90%, 90%.
90%. What's 90% of $1 million?
$1.8 million.
900,000.
$900,000. If your seller were to accept their offer at $1.2 million, as they wrote the offer, I'm being simplistic right now without looking at the rest of the terms. And this buyer also agreed to remove the appraisal contingency. Under their proof of funds that they sent with the offer, their proof of funds that they ended up sending you, okay, was for a total of $125,000. Now, is $125,000 at a purchase price of $1 million? Okay. Or excuse me, hang on. Let me. They sent you proof of funds of $150,000. Excuse me. What's 10% of a sales price of $1.2 million?
120,000.
$120,000. Okay, leaving them another $30,000 then available cash for closing costs, etc. Your seller now accepts the $1.2 million. Your buyer has waived the appraisal contingency. The appraisal now comes in at $1 million. We now have a sales price of $1.2 million. The buyer has agreed to remove that appraisal contingency. The appraisal comes in at $1 million. How much loan now is the lender going to lend? Sales price is 900. Sales price is $1.2 million. The lender is only going to lend $900,000 based on that buyer requesting a 90% loan. Because again, how appraisals work is the lender will only lend the percentage that was applied for based on the appraised price or sales price, whichever one is higher or lower. Lower. They will lend only 90% of $1 million. But can the buyer now back out saying, hey, I can't get my loan. I can't get my 90% loan out of $1.2 million. Can the buyer contractually back out?
No.
That's correct. Contractually, they can't back out penalty free. What happens now if that buyer doesn't complete the sale?
His deposit is in jeopardy.
The deposit very much is in jeopardy. As a good listing agent, how do you think your seller is going to feel? Now, granted, they're going to be enriched by the amount of the deposit, but we've lost 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks in the process now. And guess what? That seller needed to be able to move to their next destination on a time frame, on a time deadline. And they're going to ask you as a good listing agent, why did this happen? I thought you verified the funds. So one of the things I'm pointing out, okay, even before presenting the offer to your client, and this is part of the homework that a good listing agent does, is you as a good listing agent need to analyze, where do you feel realistically, especially in this marketplace, where do we feel realistically an appraised value will come in? And if then at that point, based on these crazy offers that come in significantly over the asking price, does this buyer, or do these buyers have the sufficient funds to be able to make up the difference? So if in my head, I see that we have a sales price of $1.2 million, and I think in my head, the maximum that I'm seeing is $1 million, we're $200,000 apart. This buyer needs to not only have his 10% down payment that he's putting, he needs to have the sufficient funds available, because what does removing the appraisal contingency really mean? When a buyer removes an appraisal contingency, what it means is they're saying, I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. Referring to, I brought up an offer at $1.2 million. I'm willing to pay $1.2 million, regardless of what Mr. Appraiser says that it's worth. And so, but in order to actually make that happen, we as a good listing agent need to be able to make sure that it can happen. That it's just not, shall we say, lip service, because that's really all it becomes, is lip service. Yeah, I'm willing to pay $1.2 million if I could, but I really don't have the money. All right. And so, yeah, I'm going to sacrifice. Unfortunately, I am going to sacrifice, at that point. But we're more concerned on being able to get the house sold. Because when the buyer backs out of escrow, how much money do we as listing agents make?
Nothing.
Zero. The house didn't sell. The buyer backed out of the sale. Now, who was enriched? The seller is enriched, all right? But believe it or not, based on set of circumstances, that delay actually could have cost them money. What's going on with interest rates the last few weeks?
Went up.
Interest rates gone up. Guess what? That seller also now becomes a buyer after he sells his house. He can't lock in his interest rate until his home closes, until he's actually into a new contract that he's not getting into until after his house closes. So again, I could teach this class for hours. I'm just giving you a small little snippet as an example, all right? But this is something that I want to be able to showcase to you guys, all right? As opposed to, part of the homework that needs to be done is so part of proof of funds is not just only saying, do they have enough funds based on the contract amount, but if in the event, one of the things that will make you a good agent is always playing the what if game. What if this and what if that? What if the appraisal doesn't come in at sales price? What then? In order to complete the sale, what must happen? He has to be able to put in the extra money. Well, does he have it? No. All right. So let us then say that particular buyer, all right. So now within your analysis of offers, as an example, where your listing is listed at $1 million, you feel that it is that's where the appraisal should come in. He comes in at $1.2 million, ends up removing the appraisal contingency in the contract, but you end up noticing that under the proof of funds that all he's submitted was $150,000. Now, mind you, could that buyer end up having a couple $100,000 additional? Yeah, but boy, when was the time for them to be able to let you, the listing agent, know about it? How about at the time of submission of offer, especially in the arena of competitive offers? All right. This is where you're supposed to be able to, highlight how good you are. So the reality is, if they actually had it, they probably would have submitted it, is traditionally what would have taken place. So you now see that they have $1 million, that $1.2 million, And the next second highest offer, all right, is $1,125,000. Is that somebody trying to come in? So at that point, and you now see the second highest offer at $1,125,000, all right, is 25% down payment. And you see that under his proof of funds, that he's putting 50% down. Based just on the two offers I'm now telling you, which offer would you recommend for your seller to consider over the other, and why?
50% down. Because you wouldn't have to, worry about if it appraised or not.
Well, even one step further, based on the scenario I just laid out, correct?
Right.
Well, what am I worried about the $1.2 million? That he can't complete the sale if in the event appraises at $1 million, because under his proof of funds, he only showed $150,000. 10% of $1.2 million plus a few grand extra for closing costs. And if I feel it's only going to appraise at $1 million, he needs another couple $100,000 more to be able to make up the difference. This guy can't perform. You end up recommending to your seller, boy, this guy, he submitted his pre-approval letter. He submitted his proof of funds. He's got stellar credit. He's got 800 FICO score. And 2.5 weeks later, okay, when the appraisal comes in and the lender says, I'm only going to lend you 90% of $1 million, which means, Mr. Buyer, you got to come up with the extra couple $100,000 difference. You now get the phone call from his buyer's agent. Gee, Mike, I hate to tell you this, but my buyer's going to have to cancel. And yes, I know that he's probably going to forfeit his deposit to your seller as a result. And that's going to come as a surprise to you, which it shouldn't, because you should never have recommended that your seller accept this offer, because it was a high probability that it wasn't going to come to fruition. Now, could the seller still take it? Absolutely. Because the buyer's agent is probably saying, you never know where the appraisal comes in. And that is true. In this marketplace, there's been times that, how in the world this property appraised at this crazy sales price based on the comps that is on the MLS and everything. The appraisers are reaching as well. All right, but it's a crapshoot, is what's taking place. So part of it, is really, being able to do that homework. All right.
It's the reason why most sellers will take cash rather than financing. Or
Well, yes and no. Cash is always nice, but it's not the end all and be all based on other offers. And the reason I say that is a 50% down. I shouldn't even just only use 50, even a 20% down buyer who still has plenty of cash, down payment plus loan amount equals purchase price. And like I tell my sellers, I said, sometimes it's worth a calculated risk, especially if we've done our homework and the buyer still has extra cash if needed on the basis of a low appraisal. To be able to make up the difference. But you don't need to necessarily take a discounted cash offer, over a financed offer if you're going to end up putting another $50,000 in your pocket. Yeah, because I'll ask my sellers, I said, when was the last time you made $50,000 difference in the difference of maybe 2 weeks of what a cash offer escrow window period would be versus a buyer who has financing. I said, I don't know about you, but I've never made 50 grand in 2 weeks. Okay. And to me, it'd be worth me waiting 2 weeks for an extra 50 grand to a well-qualified buyer. Now, again, I hope what I'm conveying and what part of what you're able to take out of this is understanding your homework as a listing agent is paramount in your representation to your sellers. Because that's not their job. That's why they are hiring us. They're hiring us to sell their homes at the highest price possible with the least amount of headaches and hiccups.
I had a scenario, not too long ago that the seller was not willing to go higher than what he was asking for, right?
The seller or the buyer?
The seller.
Oh, he wanted to stay on his list
Yeah,
price.
because he said, I want to get rid of this deal
Okay.
and move forward.
Okay.
I don't want to play with that game of going higher,
Mhm.
rather just sell it as it is. I know it will go fast, and fastest time I think in his case. Yeah, I mentioned that, we can go a little bit higher if you willing to, but he said, no, well, I'm not.
Well, and let me guess, that property still sold higher than his asking price. I can almost guarantee it.
I don't know.
Unless he just took the first offer that walked through the door. Okay, and I will tell you, in this marketplace, could a seller just take the first offer that walks through the door? Yes. As a good listing agent, would you recommend that? No. Why? Because what's our job as good listing agents?
To procure the best for the seller.
To get the highest price possible for the seller. Now, could the seller saying, hey, first offer at my price, to a well-qualified buyer takes it, wins? Absolutely. But who made that decision? The seller. Okay, the seller.
Yeah, there's some scenarios in which sellers say, I'm having issues with my family or my partner in business. You know what? I just want to.
The seller is always in charge of their own it's their property.
Yeah.
We are in the information business.
Makes sense.
All right. We provide them information and advice. Now, one of the things I want to be able to, point out within, and it makes it real easy on this grid sheets, and I could, end up, going on and on. Yeah, and it probably, I could teach an 8-hour class on this, and 8 hours later, you guys would be very well versed. Okay. What's one of the things I want you guys to take a look at offer number 1, and I want you to see if there's anything between the purchase price and the assignment request. If you ended up as a listing agent today, received this offer, if there was anything that would be of concern to you, and why? All right, I'm going to give you a hint. It's already called out to you, and it's not the price.
More proof of funds for number 2?
No, only focus on number 1. Only focus on offer number 1. How about the interest rate cap and points? What is that? What is it? What's it stated there? (3.5%). 3.5%. First of all, does any of you on the call or the class here already have a copy of the purchase contract in front of you as we're sitting here? That's okay. If you look at it, it's clause 3E1 in the purchase agreement here. You even know what this clause means? Jim, want to take a stab at it? Here. based on that, where it says the interest rate cap in points. And it was listed here at 3.5%. I'm gonna take a stab as to what that means.
That's a going rate.
No. What that means is this agent wrote in the offer that the buyer signed that the maximum interest rate that the buyer would accept, okay, is on a 30-year fix is not to exceed 3.5%. Go ahead. I'm sorry, who was interjecting that just now? So what that means is that if in the event interest rates went above 3.5%, that they could not obtain a loan at 3.5% or lower, that the buyer could do what?
Cancel.
Cancel penalty free. So what is, I will tell you, these offers, this is one back in December. All right, these were offers that had come in December. What has gone on between December and now?
Interest
Right.
rates have raised.
Interest rates have raised. What's today's going rate on 30-year conforming?
Over 4.
Over 4. That's exactly right.
But you could still buy the rate down if you didn't need to.
They also had it where it was at one, you could, but they don't have to. The buyer wrote, and again, our job as a listing agent is to be able to try to prevent buyers being able to contractually back out of the sale when we're representing them as sellers. Now, granted, when you're representing a buyer, all right, at that point, the buyer may say, hey, I don't want to buy the home if my interest rate is over X. And your dialogue when you're representing a buyer also needs to be able to be, well, if it's at an interest rate that is unreasonable, that is going to be a handicap on getting your offer accepted. If you have a good listing agent who is looking at the contract, all right, because if you end up having your seller accept an offer that has a 3.5% interest rate in their contract, and you didn't see it as a listing agent, and you didn't address it in the form of the counter offer, and it is now right before a week before closing, and that buyer now says, the lowest interest rate I can get is 4.25%. I don't want to close this house, okay, at this interest rate, so I'm going to back out. And because my contract says I don't have to buy the house if rate went over 3.5%, I'm exercising my contractual right, being able to back out penalty free and get all my money back. Holding the seller now in the lurch of his house is now all packed up. His house is no longer in show ready condition like it was prior, because he's thinking he was moving. All right. And he now has to put his now half packed up house back on the market.
He had backup offers.
Well, that's a whole nother discussion.
Just for today's market.
Okay. Had the listing agent done their job correctly, they would have addressed it, of which even back then at 3.5%, I addressed by saying best prevailing rate, referring to Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you want to buy this house regardless if rates go up, okay? We want you to be able to be willing to accept the interest rate if in the event rates go up, okay, beyond that number. And if that's not acceptable to you, then don't accept the counteroffer. But my job as a good listing agent is to represent my seller and not allow a buyer to be able to have a contractual out to be able to back out of the sale. That makes sense, guys?
Well, what if we can't afford it?
Then guess what? That may not be then the buyer for your listing. Especially in today's marketplace where you have multiple offers. See, part of being a good listing agent is, again, being a detective, is have been able to ascertain. Part of the dialogue then is making a phone call to the loan rep. All right, at that point, hey, based on your pre-approval, what is the highest interest rate that this buyer would qualify, for, if rates were to go up 0.5%, would they be able to qualify if the rates went up 0.5%, as an example? So, let's see here. Any questions right now? I mean, again, I know I have only covered just the tip of the iceberg with you guys.
You still have to get the appraisal to get a lock on it.
Every bank finance property requires an appraisal.
Right. So
The only properties that don't require an appraisal are cash purchases. Now, can a cash buyer still get an appraisal done? Absolutely. It's not a requirement unless it was put into the contract and agreed to between both buyer and seller. But if there's bank financing involved, all bank finance properties will require an appraisal.
and right now, with the rates moving, it could be a problem.
What's that?
Could be a problem.
It very much can be a problem. All right. So, all right, it's 3 o'clock, guys. If anybody wants to be able to get a copy of the spreadsheet, go ahead and email me. Feel free to contact me if you'd like. I'm going to have additional contract classes in 2 weeks. I'm going to be having one where we're literally going to cover the contract, however much we can, within an hour. And I'll be giving you other, pearls of wisdom in that way. Before I leave,
Simon,
go ahead.
Simon, can we have him go over the whole contract and make the class longer?
Well, Simon's not here right now. I'm actually on FY. The reality is this class, to do it any justice, it's a minimum. It would be minimum of 4 hours. Okay. And so I'm not at this point. We're going to first tackle it, kind of an hour chunks at this very moment is what we're doing at this time. All right. But, I will say, if you guys end up taking the spreadsheet that I'll email you, if you put the request into me, and start practicing filling in a contract and then filling in the spreadsheet, that will absolutely help with your familiarity. All right. If this contract scares you right now, it should. All right. This is a legally binding document, all right, that your buyers and sellers sign. And there is a lot of information, and the print is very small, and you recognize what you say. All right. And this is, with all sincerity, what you say and what you do and what you don't say and what you don't do can be used against you in the court of law if in the event your client decides to sue you based on a misrepresentation. All right. And our numbers now are very big numbers, referring to, we're talking starter homes starting at $1 million. So, it's definitely one that you definitely need to be able to not just learn it, but really have a command of it. And, everything is important in this business. Yeah. But in my opinion, nothing more is more important than understanding the contract in order for you to be able to explain it to your clients. Yeah, so, all right, guys, if there's nothing else, I think I'm gonna end our class today. Thanks for attending.
Thank you.
All
Thank you,
right.
Steve.
Have a good day, guys.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Steve. It was amazing.
Great, thank you.
Bye.
So when's your follow-up classes?
2 weeks from now.
I need them faster.
Those classes will be contracts,
Yeah.
or 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now.
In person, right? Like,
Yeah, it'll be right here as well.
and that will be for listing for buyers as well, or just?
I'll be skewing it more as like you are from the buyer's agent perspective.
Okay,
Okay, yeah, and so